A conservative think tank says the Denver area spent hundreds of millions of dollars serving migrants. Take a closer look at whether those numbers hold up to scrutiny.
Well, so some of the sticker shock, we need to be honest about what the numbers are.
A judge says some of the officers there the night Christian Glass was killed didn't have a duty to try and stop it.
It's a loophole. It's a technicality. Shouldn't we hold all law enforcement officers to the same standards?
Denver considers banning flavored tobacco. You can imagine the reaction from customers.
I just think it's stupid.
And Coloradans with Parkinson's are using an unusual therapy, boxing.
I'm getting ready for Mike Tyson.
Don't let Iron Mike hear that. Pretty sure he'd fight anybody these days. That and more tonight on Next. Headlines and right-wing national media outlets say Denver spent a whopping $356 million serving migrants. Might seem strange given that the city of Denver says it spent just half of what it expected. It spent about $79 million. Our Angeline McCall looks at how the conservative Common Sense Institute arrived at its total and why experts in the area studied say the number making headlines seems inflated.
Across the Denver metro, we know the migrant response has taken money, but how much?
The nuts and bolts of it here is that there's kind of a positive and a negative with this report. On the positive, the city ended up only spending a fraction of what it was afraid it was going to need to spend earlier in the year.
DJ Summers with conservative think tank the Common Sense Institute says it's taken $356 million, a mix of state, federal, and local tax dollars. Only $79 million spent by the actual city of Denver.
However, there are additional costs that do accumulate in other areas that aren't related directly to City of Denver spending.
So that number of $356 million is really adding up from one thing, it's education. CSI says it took $228 million to educate new-to-country students who enrolled in metro area schools since December 2022.
Per student, that racks up. That's over $220 million worth of education spending.
CSI estimated there are 16,000 new-to-country students in metro area school districts. Denver says not so fast. Their data shows of the 45,000 migrants the city has seen since December 2022, only 8,300 were school-aged children who were sheltered by the city. And of those, 2,000 left the state. Meaning, the city's best estimate is there are about 6,100 kids in the Denver metro area today. After education, the next biggest portion of money is health care. CSI estimates uncompensated care at $49 million, a number they calculated by estimating every migrant has visited the emergency room at least once. Denver Health says while they did see emergency room visits in the beginning, recently they've seen more visits to outpatient settings, which would cost less.
We definitely have to start somewhere with our numbers, right? We're trying to come up with a first pass estimate.
Colorado State economics professor Anita Alves-Pina says the numbers with the calculation would naturally end up on the high end.
It makes sense to be honest that there are big costs at the beginning of any human migration, right? But there are also short run and long run benefits associated with new population flows.
Diving into that big number, the $228 million that it has taken to educate new-to-country students, CSI told us in an interview DPS accounts for around 50% of all of those newcomer students. DPS says only 4,900 are enrolled today. It seems unlikely, right, Kyle, that there would be another 11,000 in other metro area school districts.
It's helpful to know what exactly went into these numbers and also the acknowledgement that these are high-end estimates, right? Whether somebody's out to make a political point with this or whether that's just how they like to do math. This is like as a max, this is the amount that could have been spent. And as the expert said to you, they're not sure that the high-end estimates really hold up to scrutiny.
Right. When I called the city, when I called DPS, when I called Denver Health, everyone's reaction was these numbers seem really high for what we know to be true within our own organizations or agencies. What's important to note is that the math is correct if you do the calculations based on what CSI says, right? But when you're basing those estimates, those calculations rather on estimates, that's where you get these really high numbers. And ultimately, that's where there is some of this discrepancy.
Yep, and as folks in your story acknowledge, and as we've talked about in our reporting on the migration into Denver, there are just estimates because there's not exact tracking of where every single person went. Angeline McCall, thank you very much. As President-elect Donald Trump prepares to start the largest deportation in American history in Aurora, Colorado, the Democrat who represents that city in Congress has a new Republican ally in his effort to get a closer look inside the deportation process. Congressman Jason Crow and Republican John Rutherford from Florida have introduced a bill that would give members of Congress and their staff immediate access inside federal immigration detention centers, like the one that sits in Aurora. They say it's a way to ensure transparency and oversight of those facilities, which are often privately owned and notoriously secretive. Crow's been calling for more oversight of ICE facilities since 2019, when he was repeatedly denied entry into the facility in Aurora. He says he's trying to investigate reports of disease outbreaks and couldn't get in there for nearly a month. This is Crow's second attempt at passing this bill. Again, Republicans control the House. It is the first time he's been joined by a Republican co-sponsor. A judge has dropped the charges against 2 officers who were on the scene the night that Christian Glass was shot and killed in Clear Creek County. Glass, of course, was the young man who called 911 for help after he got his car stuck in Silver Plume. He was panicking, having a mental health issue. Several officers engaged with him through constructive conversation and shouts and orders for more than an hour. After they couldn't get him to leave the car, a Clear Creek deputy shot and killed him. 2 Division of Gaming officers were among the 6 officers charged with failure to intervene after none of them stepped in to stop the escalation. A judge has now ruled that the state law covering peace officers in that situation does not include Division of Gaming officers. The attorney for Glass's family says every officer there should be held to the same standard.
The Division of Gaming officers weren't dismissed because their conduct wasn't criminal. They were dismissed because of a loophole in the statute. All the officers who arrived on June 10, 2022 were post-certified police officers. They carried guns, they had badges, they had the ability to arrest people, and they should be held accountable.
The Clear Creek County deputy who actually shot Glass, a man named Andrew Buin, was charged with second-degree murder, official misconduct, and reckless endangerment. A jury could not reach a decision on those charges in April, so Buin's going to go on trial again in February. His supervisor, Kyle Gould, took a plea deal last year and can no longer work in law enforcement in Colorado. So you'll find a new warning label of sorts on tobacco products in Denver. Not on the product packaging itself, but on the outside of stores selling it. Signs that warn customers those products may soon be banned in the city. Mark Salinger looks at Denver City Council's plan to outlaw flavored tobacco.
Of all the warnings that greet people buying tobacco, there's a new one outside that might be even scarier for customers.
I just think it's stupid.
Signs like these at Smoker Friendly on Broadway warn of an impending ban on flavored tobacco in Denver.
My favorite flavor would be probably Blue Raz Ice.
Blue Raz Ice, and every flavored tobacco product in this store may soon be pushed out of the city.
We are committed to make sure that we pass this bill in 2024.
If council members like Darrell Watson succeed in passing their bill.
It would end the sale of flavored tobacco across the city and county of Denver.
Tomorrow, City Council will take another step forward in passing the bill. Back in 2021, then Mayor Michael Hancock vetoed a similar proposal. Watson is confident there will be a different outcome this time, even if it means improving health comes at an economic price.
We're not unsympathetic to the impacts or possible impacts that this may have on some businesses.
The process has just been so unfair to retailers and distributors in the city of Denver.
Mary Zarmak owns Smoker Friendly with her brothers. The tobacco shop based in Boulder has 360 stores in 13 states, including 6 in Denver. That could change if the ban passes.
We already have a lease coming up and we've decided to move right across the street. We got a new lease and we're out of the Denver city limits.
She estimates 30% of the company's sales come from flavored tobacco.
The effect it'll have is we'll probably be looking for new locations.
It's a ban on flavors, or if you ask people like Stephanie, a ban on what people like.
It doesn't really get rid of the problem, just gets rid of what people prefer.
There's been a lot of money coming in from outside groups aimed at swaying this city council vote. An organization funded by tobacco giant Philip Morris is running ads that people should have smoke-free alternatives to cigarettes. Convenience Store Association for Colorado and Wyoming is also involved in the marketing against this bill.
So City Council passed this before. Former Mayor Michael Hancock vetoed it. I don't remember us ever asking Mike Johnston about it during the mayoral campaign. Just wasn't really an issue. Do we know where he stands on it?
So I asked him about it today. He says that he would support this initiative. So assuming that this passes, Johnston is in support of it. What happens here is tobacco stores move a couple minutes down the road to places like Englewood or whatever, and people just drive 10 minutes to get these products, but it would be banned in Denver. Other cities like Golden and Edgewater have also passed similar bans.
Interesting. All right, Mark Salinger, thank you. An issue with banks has been slowing down unemployment benefits in Colorado. The state says some of the banks are suspicious. The state labor department says so-called suspicious banks accounted for 45% of fraud holds on unemployment benefits. So the state put in a new bank verification system. But the banks have to opt into this system called early warning. If a bank doesn't, the state will not send funds there.
This money is supposed to be given to me as the individual to help pay, mortgage, childcare, everyday expenses. And right now, the best way for us to do that is to get it through direct deposit, which it doesn't work right now.
There is another option. The state can issue people a debit card and can load their benefits there. Denver's taxpayer-funded program to provide college scholarships is not following advice from the city's auditor. More than a year after auditors raised concerns about oversight and quality assurance, a follow-up found that the Office of Children's Affairs didn't implement most of the recommended changes. In 2018, Denver voters approved a sales tax hike for what's called Prosperity Denver to reimburse nonprofits providing scholarships to students in Denver. Auditors say significant leadership turnover there may have caused delays in the implementation. Since 2018, Denver Prosperity has moved $47 million through their program and has funded more than 37,000 scholarships. Plans for a luxury swimming pool, a private club, go down the drain. Denver says it doesn't align with their values. And when bison cross the state line into Colorado, they're fair game for hunters. That may change.
Gets you to meet other people, some of whom will be better off than you are, and some of whom will be worse. But we're all in it together.
Throwing a punch will do that. Find out what they're up to next. A debate in a neighborhood in Denver tested what happens when a private property owner needs the city's permission to do something the city council says is not in line with this city's goals. The idea of a luxury swim club has been rejected. Denver City Council voted down a proposed zoning change to allow a developer to build a private swim club on Wolf Street near Sheridan Boulevard in the Highlands. Several on council expressed concern that the project didn't line up with the city's goals of equitable access to parks and recreation. Only one council member voted in favor of the zoning change.
I certainly understand the frustration of the idea of the use that might be not in line with our equity goals, but that's not the decision we get to make. Private property owners get to do with their property what they want, even if we hate it. And I got to be honest, Elon, I hate it.
Well, except they needed that zoning change and they didn't get it, so it's not going to happen. The developer said that private pool would have come with an initiation fee of, hold on now, $15,000 to $30,000. Wild bison wandering into Colorado may get new legal protection, because right now bison are considered livestock in our state. A new bill, proposed bill, classify bison as wildlife, provide more protection from hunters. The proposal comes out of a new legislative committee that's looking at issues important to Native communities. Democratic Senator Jesse Danielson from Jefferson County is the sponsor of this. There are no wild bison herds in Colorado right now. There are some in Utah, and they don't really care about the state lines. They go back and forth. CPW estimated that in 2022, as many as 30 bison were killed when they came over the line into Colorado. On this relatively warm December day, we remember 111 years ago this week when Denver was blanketed in nearly 4 feet of snow. To this day, it's Denver's biggest snowstorm on record. Almost 46 inches of snow. It's shut down the city for more than 2 weeks. Snowfall totals were even higher up the hill in Georgetown. They got 86 inches there. I don't know, Kathy Saban, do you think people 111 years ago complained that they weren't plowed out fast enough, that the city's amenities were not perfectly tuned a day later? Were they hardier stock, or is complaining just an American tradition?
I think they were hardier stock, and they were probably worried about staying warm and eating.
I'm with you.
That's what I'm thinking. But 45-inch snowstorm, that is a storm goal, isn't it? Coming off of November with 23.3 inches, fourth snowiest November on record. Wow, we can see what this state is certainly capable of, but not today. We started at 30 and we warmed to 65. The average high is 46, and look at that, we have the record at 69. Temperatures have cooled back to 49 in Denver, 35 in Greeley, and 50 in Fort Collins. Winds are picking up over some of the higher passes and will do so with the arrival of a weak dry front overnight. Denver stays mild and dry through Saturday. The pattern change over the weekend includes mountain snow Sunday into Monday, colder weather for Denver early next week, and maybe a few snow showers here. This is the weak system that we're tracking that'll be in overnight. You probably won't even notice it. Temperatures will bottom out in the mid-30s tonight and then rebound quickly tomorrow. Not as warm tomorrow as what we saw today, but mid-50s all the way to Saturday, the Parade of Lights. Of course, on Saturday evening, it looks like terrific weather for that event.
What they are fighting here is Parkinson's. Unique project. Next. Exercise is key to improving symptoms of Parkinson's disease, which is why there are seniors in Evergreen throwing punches.
Good job. Make sure you're breathing 25 seconds. So for about 30 minutes of the class, we work on warm-up and getting the body primed and ready for boxing.
Butt kicks.
Butt kicks. I don't have enough butt left.
We also work the speed bag for just hand-eye coordination.
Right.
And time. A number of other tools to just help people in their journey. Good intensity. 5 stations, 1 minute each, and then we'll box. There it is. Putting some hot sauce on it, Bert.
I feel better after doing boxing. I take it for fellowship with other people who have Parkinson's. I was diagnosed about 2.5 years ago.
Boxing therapy is proven through a number of studies to reduce the symptoms and also help with gait, motor function, and balance. There it is.
It makes you think about other people. It makes you think about how they are and what they can do to feel better and how they've made me feel better.
There's just a number of things that people can do to really help stave off some of these symptoms. However, there's nothing as intense as boxing, and that's where I really get enlivened.
I'm getting ready for Mike Tyson.
Something that's important for each of us to remember is that when there are these invisible diseases, we don't necessarily know what people are going through, and I think that one of the reasons people like coming to our class specifically is they don't necessarily feel that they're being identified in any specific space or category. They just feel like a person, and I think that's what we all want to see and feel, is just that sense of belonging. 3, 2, 4, yes. Yeah. This is a numbers game, right? 25 seconds.
Wonderful effort. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a next first. Producer Mallory Harris, we like to stand when she enters the room, has our feedback out of the control room for the first time. Rare sighting. Back with your feedback next. We talked about there being no wild bison herds in Colorado, and Mark and Christy both wrote in to mention the bison herd at the Rocky Mountain Arsenal. Yes, there is a bison herd there. There's also the city of Denver's bison herd up at Genesee. Both those herds, however, they're fenced, they're protected, so we didn't really count those as wild herds. They're not exposed to hunters in the way that the bison who wander over from Utah are. Alita says, I watch Next every day. I'm delighted to know I can now listen to a podcast on demand. Did you hear? Next is now a podcast. All the great journalism, and you don't have to look at me. We'll see you next time.